Hey guys, it's Sabrina. Today I'm going to be talking about my winter TBR. It's a little late to be filming and posting this, to be honest, because as I'm filming this, it's the end of December. So I've already wasted an entire month without having the TBR up. But I'm going to post it anyway because there's still 2 months left, so I still have some time. And that's just the end of that. So let's get started. The first book on my TBR for winter is The Great Alone by Kristen Hanna. This book I don't know much about. So I've read Kristen Hanna's The Nightingale in 2016 when it first came out, and I really liked it. Don't know if I would still like it today because I haven't read it in many years. But I loved it at the time. And I've heard a lot of hype for Kristen Hanna, so I just wanted to pick up something else. From what I understand, this follows a family in Alaska in the 1970s. They decided to be homesteaders, but then the dad sucks ass. And he abandons the mom and the children? I don't know. Don't take my word for it because I'm not totally sure that's what this is about. But that's kind of what my understanding is. But my thought process for this was Alaska, it's cold and winter is cold. So there we go. There's a connection. That's why it's on the TBR. Next book on the TBR is perhaps the most important, and I almost hope I'll have this read by the time this video is up. I highly doubt that. And that is Wind and Tooth by Brandon Sanderson. This is the 5th book in the Stormlight Archive series. This is a super high fantasy series, which I can't even really describe because first of all, it's been years since I've read it and I don't know what is a spoiler or not anymore. And second of all, because this is the 5th in the series, so that kind of C1, you know? Read it if you like high fantasy, because this is an amazing, amazing series. I'm so excited for this sequel. So excited. I'm this might be the best book I read all year. It could be. It could very well be. So I'm really excited to see. Also, because I know he planned on writing the Stormlight Archive in 2 sets of 5. So this is kind of the end of the first arc. I don't know if that means that's the last time we see these characters. I don't know what it means at all, and it stresses me out. So I have to read this as soon as I can. After that, we have No Name in the Streets by James Baldwin. Oh, just saying his name makes me excited. So that's stupid to say. Anyway, I have read 2 books by James Baldwin, one nonfiction, one fiction, and I've absolutely loved both of them. His writing is so eloquent, so beautiful, so hard-hitting. And I'm just so excited to read more about him. And this is his memoir that kind of talks about his childhood, I believe. So that makes me even more excited to read it because I'd love to learn more about him and his life. And that's all I have to say about this one. I'm just so excited. So excited to read this. I would read a grocery list written by James Baldwin, you know? I would read anything this man has ever written in his entire life because I believe that all of it is award winning. Worthy. That's what I was going for. Award worthy. Even his grocery list. God, this man, I'm so excited to read this. Also, I just want to point out, this is a book I stole from my ex-boyfriend. He knows I stole it, so it's not really stealing. When we broke up, I was going through the books, and he had 2 copies of this one, so I decided to take one for myself. And I don't regret it. I don't feel bad at all. I think James Baldwin would have wanted me to have it. Next book on my TBR is The Winter Witch by Paula Braxton. I don't know much about this either. Sorry. This is why I feel I'm bad at TBRs, because I don't know every synopsis of every book I have on my shelves. But this follows a young girl, and not a young girl. She's a young woman. This follows a young woman in a Welsh town. She's hated by her town because she's really quiet and doesn't talk. And then her mother marries her off to this man. And I think eventually they fall in love. So I think this is a romance, but it's also kind of a fantasy because I think she might have little powers, or maybe they think she's a witch or something like that. Her silence is a mystery as well as her magic. So there is some fantasy in here. I feel I have to read this during the winter because it's The Winter Witch. I put this on my winter TBR last year and then I didn't read it during the winter. And then every other time I looked at it, I was well, I can't read it now. It's not winter. So I have to read it this winter. I just have to. Next, we have another nonfiction, and that is Worn, A People's History of Clothing by Sophie Thanhauser. This book, I've put this on many TBRs. I just haven't picked it up yet. I don't know why. I'm so interested in it. It's a history of 4 different types of, it tells 5, sorry, not 4, 5. 5 stories: linen, cotton, silk, synthetics, and wool. I need to know. I'm really into niche shit. Fashion history. I've watched so many fashion history YouTube videos over my lifetime. And this just makes me think of that. It's just the history of these fabrics. And so it's also going to be the history of the fashion and I want to read it so bad. So bad. Next book on my list is Lapvona by Tisha Moshfegh. From what I understand, this follows a class struggle in a medieval town, and that's all I really know about it. But I have heard people talk about this one like really highly, like they've really enjoyed it. And to be honest, I'm like a mixed bag when it comes to Natasha Meshvig. I loved My Year of Rest and Relaxation, but most of her other books I just found okay, although I hated McGlue. I just did not like that book at all. She tends to have like really unlikable characters, which like isn't an issue for me, but in McGlue I just couldn't do it. So I have no idea what I'm going to think about this one, but similar to My Year of Rest and Relaxation, the synopsis just sounds so up my alley that I feel like I'm going to love it. I also heard that she wrote this during lockdown, so I heard that kind of influences the book as well, which I'm excited to see. Then we have Down Below by Leonora Carrington. This would be my first NYRB book that I read, and I own so many of them that I need to get reading. I really do. So this follows Leonora Carrington. This is nonfiction, and she would later become one of the 20th century's great painters of the weird, the alarming, and the wild. But this follows her when she was 19-year-old in London, and she falls in love with an artist named Max, and they go to live in Provence. But then in 1940, the invading German army arrests her love and takes him to a concentration camp. And as a result of that, she has like a breakdown and she has to go to the psychiatric hospital. So this follows like her story throughout that. It's very, very short. But it just sounds so interesting. I really want to read it. And I love the cover. My God, that's a good cover. I really think I'm going to love this one. And another one I think I'm going to love, even though I have no basis for that thought, is Hangsman by Shirley Jackson. I think I'm going to love this one just because I love Shirley Jackson, or at least what I've read from her so far. I love The Haunting of Hill House so much. Like, just thinking about that book makes me so happy. I have no idea what this one is about. I don't really want to read what it's about either, to be honest. Just because I think I want to go into it blind and just kind of experience it. This is another really good cover. It's a Penguin Modern Classic. I just think I'm going to love it just because it's Shirley Jackson. Next, we have another book that I chose just based off of the fact that I think it has like winter vibes, and that is Anne of Green Gables by Ella Montgomery. This follows a young girl named Anne who's an orphan, and she gets adopted mistakenly because they are trying to get like a male farmhand. She gets adopted by this brother and sister, and then she has a happy little life in Canada. And that's kind of all I understand. I just watched the TV show A with an E. That's what I'm basing this off of. Isn't this a beautiful little cover? I have the same edition for Little Women. Oh God, they're beautiful. I love them. So I was excited to get Anne of Green Gables in the same edition. And I think I'm just associating this with winter because it takes place in Canada. So, but whatever, it worked. It's on my winter TBR now. Next, we have one that almost feels like a punishment for some reason, but I'm not trying to punish myself. And that is Children of Dune by Frank Herbert. This is the third book in the Dune series. And the thing is that I've liked the first two books so far, so I don't know why this one feels like an undertaking, but it does. If you don't know about Dune, essentially the first book, Dune, follows the House of Atreides. It's like a futuristic sci-fi world where there's this planet called Arrakis, where people harvest this thing called spice. And spice is kind of like the mineral that powers intergalactic travel, from what I understand. So at the beginning of the book, Arrakis is held by these like evil people, but then House Atreides gets assigned to it, so they have to go there, but then they're being like sabotaged, and it's a whole thing. I really loved the first book. Second book I liked, didn't completely love. This book I'm just scared for because I've heard that this is where it gets bad/weird. I'm totally up for the weird part, but I don't know that I'm up for the bad part. But I do just like want to go through and read the whole series of Dune just because I've heard not only that it gets bad, but that it's like turns into the weirdest shit imaginable. And that is what I want to read. So I'm hoping to get this read this winter so I can continue on with the series. Next, we have not one book, but a series of books, and that is Be Sure by Shannon McGuire. This is the first 3 books in the Werewolf Children series. I've read the first one before, which is called Every Heart a Doorway, but I want to reread it and also read the other first 3. Why did I say it like that? I want to reread that and also books 2 and 3. Essentially, this book follows these children who have somehow found like a portal into their perfect world. It's like a fantasy world usually, but then they've come back and they're like depressed and upset because they can't be in that world anymore. And so there's like this home that takes them in to help them cope with that. And I loved the first book. I thought it was brilliant, and I've always wanted to continue on with it. So when I bought this little compendium of the first 3, I just thought it was the perfect opportunity to continue on with the series, and I really want to do that. And then the very last book of my winter TBR is kind of a wild card, but I had to throw a classic onto here, and that is The Last Man by Mary Shelley. This book, from what I understand, deals with like environmental disaster. It's a sci-fi book written while Mary Shelley was in a self-imposed lockdown after the loss of her husband and children, and in the wake of the climate-changing Mount Tambora eruption and a raging cholera outbreak. The Last Man is the first End of Mankind novel, an early work of climate fiction and a prophetic depiction of environmental change. Come on. That sounds so good. It also has this pretty cover. I got this book in Quebec, which also makes me want to read it for some reason because I associate that with the winter, even though I was there during the summer. But it was Canada, so winter. I think I liked Frankenstein by Mary Shelley, but this synopsis appeals to me a bit more than the other one did. So I'm hoping that I'll really love this. And, I mean, may as well read it and think about climate change and freak the fuck out, right? There you go. Those are all the books I want to read this winter. Let me know what's on your winter TBR down below. Let me know which books I should start with, and I'll see you soon with another video. Goodbye.